Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I'm your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you start experiencing so many changes in this time of your life, whether it be hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, brain fog, or that weight gain around the middle that seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere, despite you not changing anything. So you go back to those tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a bunch of cardio, yet nothing seems to be working. You're putting in all this effort and have nothing to show for it, or the scale actually starts moving in the opposite direction than what you want it to. But we know now that your body is inherently different than what it was to you prior experiencing these hormonal changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to help you really understand how your body changes in this time of your life. That way you can reach those health and fitness goals, live a life full of vitality, finally feel in control and at home in your body again, and understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today on the podcast, I know we talk a lot about what kind of foods you should be eating and that kind of stuff to really help with hormonal imbalances and your metabolism and allow you to help you to lose weight. But what about how you eat? That's just as important of a question. And I know that we've been told to believe that the horrible hormonal symptoms of perimenopause and menopause are something that you just have to deal with, right? You just got to get through it. But I am here to tell you that there's actually a lot of hope, and that's not the case. Just because it's common does not mean that it's normal, and you don't have to just quote unquote deal with it and trudge through it and eventually it'll just get better. Yes, it's inevitable that hormone levels are going to change in this time of your life, and those nasty symptoms of hormonal imbalances like the night sweats and everything that we talk about and the belly fat accumulation and even anxiety and depression, those are actually quite controllable, to be honest. You don't have to be fatigued all the time. You don't have to have digestive issues and achy joints and inflammation and all these terrible things that we're told we just have to grin and bear it. That's a bunch of BS, to be honest. They are preventable, they are treatable, and they shouldn't be as terrible as you're led to believe. It's not that's just how it is. And menopause is more than just losing your period and all of a sudden having hot flashes. It's a lot more complex than that, and the symptoms that go along with it. So I want to talk a little bit about how you're eating to help with these things, because it's not always just what you eat. How you eat matters too. So how our body cells communicate with one another, so from the brain to the ovaries to your adrenals, all the pathways, is very crucial, not only for successful fat loss, but for feeling good as well. Our hormones are what communicate for us in a chain of different signals that the brain travels through the body. It signals to the organ to release different hormones, and that helps our body function in a certain way. But these hormones are usually crucial for not only reproduction, like we think about, like estrogen and progesterone, right? But for our body to actually function properly, for our metabolism to work, for our body to be good at burning calories, and obviously be able to lose fat. And when that chain of communication gets disrupted and the function between the organs and the metabolic processes and the hormone production, they all kind of start to break down, and then our body isn't in a great position. And a lot of women that we talk to are in that not so great position. So how does that communication get disrupted? How is it that all of a sudden our brain just isn't sending the signal properly, or things aren't being produced as well anymore, or they're not going to the right place in the body? How does that even happen? Well, these hormone systems react to the environment around us and create conscious and subconscious chemical reactions that really dictate the body's hormone communication pathways and our metabolism, our metabolic rate. So this is basically all based on survival, unfortunately. Remember, your body's just trying to keep you alive. It doesn't know that you're just stressed because of something that you're thinking about. You're not actually in a physical danger. It doesn't know that you're sleep deprived because you stayed up late watching a movie versus dealing with tons of trauma, right? Our body doesn't know that. It doesn't know that you're just trying to lose weight and you're cutting calories. So stress is going to be the cause of 90% of all hormonal imbalances. But it's really important to remember that stress comes in many, many, many forms, both external and internal. So this can be work stress. It can be family stress. It can be unexpected events, busy schedules, anxiety, worrying or ruminating, excitement or anticipation, poor sleep, under eating, overeating, over exercising, under exercising, being go, go, go all the time, work deadlines, finances, the pandemic that we had, if you're not eating enough carbohydrates, like there's so many things that cause stress that we're not aware of. And we think we're quote unquote handling it well, but our body is doing something completely different inside, right? So unmanaged stress is going to result in low hormone communication signals, which is going to result in a slower metabolism. So your body is burning less calories at rest. Your body's not very good at burning calories. It's like you're transitioning more towards a hybrid car where you're being more fuel efficient, which obviously is going to make weight loss a lot more challenging. And it's also going to result in worse perimenopausal symptoms and further hormonal imbalances. And then the cycle just gets worse and worse and worse. If we are managing our stress, we have better hormone communication signals. Our metabolism speeds up. Our body is better at burning calories. So it's more like we're a diesel truck. We're not fuel efficient. We're good at burning fuel, which obviously is going to make weight loss a lot more easy. And it's also going to improve your menopausal symptoms and perimenopausal symptoms. And that's going to help really maximize hormone balance. And now we have a positive cycle of things just improving. So hormone imbalances are is going to result in slowed metabolism. So our body gets worse at burning calories. We're going to see muscle loss, which we don't want because our muscle is hard to put on when estrogen and progesterone goes down, and low testosterone, right? If that's something you're dealing with. Muscle helps burn a lot of calories at rest. It's what makes us look fit and makes weight loss easier. Hormonal imbalances are also going to result in weight gain or weight loss resistance, an accumulation of belly fat. You're going to start experiencing fatigue, anxiety, depression, mood changes, mood swings, change in feeling like your regular self. It's like the things that used to bring you joy just don't anymore. Maybe you've kind of lost your like quote unquote zest for life. You just don't feel like yourself anymore. And over time, that's going to develop into like a lot of deeper issues and eventually can lead to things like autoimmune conditions or even failure of some organs in really extreme cases. There's just a lot of things that can happen. And I did a whole podcast on different hormonal imbalances and the symptoms associated with it a while back. So you can head back into the podcast for that. Otherwise, again, this will be like a 4-hour episode. I just seem to get my podcast episodes getting longer and longer as I just have so much that I want to talk about. So I'm doing my very best to try and trim this down for you. So now that you kind of understand that aspect, that like the stress is going to cause a lot of hormonal issues, let's talk about the ways of eating that can contribute to hormonal imbalances and stress, especially once you're in perimenopause and the years that follow. So menopause and postmenopause as well, this all applies. So ways of eating that affect hormonal imbalances and how. Number one is going to be inconsistent intake day to day. So we want to address this one first and foremost. It is incredibly important because inconsistency with our intake is something that the majority of us do struggle with. Like how many of us think that we're actually staying in 150 calorie range day to day? We're not, right? Like, it doesn't take much for us to be higher or lower. If we skip a meal, then we're kind of hooped, or indulge in the evening and then we're over, right? Like, consistency is hard and it's something that a lot of us struggle with. And it might seem like a hack to not eat as much after a day or two of eating too much, right? So if it's like, oh, I had a really bad weekend, I ate way too much on Monday and Tuesday, I'm going to like dial it back and really like overcompensate, right? And like, it might seem like it's not that big of a deal. And it might seem like it's okay to like, go out for dinner or the appies, the drinks, the dessert, all that kind of stuff. But then during the week, we're going to be quote unquote good and really restrict. But I'm here to tell you that inconsistent calorie intake is one of the main reasons that your metabolism isn't doing so hot, why your body isn't good at burning calories, why you're struggling to lose weight. Inconsistency is a huge, huge stressor on our body, believe it or not. And it taps into the way our body's survival mechanism kind of functions. So if we're eating 900 calories on one day and then 2,000 on the other. It might average to 1,450 throughout the week, right? However, that's not the full story as to how your body is adapting to that up and down calorie intake. It doesn't even have to be that extreme. Like it can be like, okay, one day I get 1,500 calories, the next I get 2,000. You're like, that's still like not too low, right? Like that's decent. I'm still getting like on average 1,750, right? Like that's not too bad. But the up and down is stressful on your body. You need to realize what that does, okay? And if you already have a low stress threshold, so if your body can't handle stress very well, or you are a person that has a lot of stress in your life, having that up and down is just contributing to that further, making it so much harder for your body to function properly. So the body is way smarter than we think it is, right? And we are wired for survival and not fat loss, unfortunately, as much as we wish we were. We just most definitely are not. And it doesn't know how much energy is going to be coming in today versus tomorrow versus the next day, it's going to do its best to really conserve. Okay, it's going to be conservative. Your metabolism is going to slow down. So what that means is you have all these internal processes in your body. It's not just how much you eat and how much you exercise, believe it or not. This is why the calories in, calories out stuff is not super great. We did a whole other podcast on that I highly recommend you go listen to. But it's like a bad relationship, So it's like if you are constantly walking on eggshells and it's like, I don't know whether to share this news today or not, because I don't know if they'll be in a good mood and receive it well. And you're just kind of always playing on defense. That's how your body is when you are being inconsistent with calories. It doesn't know, am I going to get a lot of calories one day? Is it going to be a lot today? Are we going to have a treat? Are we not? So your body just is very conservative. It downregulates things internally so that your body isn't burning as many calories to really store that. Whereas if your body knows day to day, I'm going to get within like 1,900 to 2,050, like I'm good. I know what to expect. I know what to anticipate. I'm like chilling. Everything's great. Your body responds a lot better. Just like if you're in a good relationship, you can thrive more. You're not worried about like big blowouts and you're not worried about how they're going to react. You can share stuff and they're going to not react poorly to you, right? Like you feel loved and supportive and it's predictable in how they're going to react to things and you can share good news and bad news and you're not nervous about that. That's good. And like compare yourself in like the previous walking on eggshells versus a nice, good, healthy relationship. The way you feel is drastically different. It's the exact same with your body and metabolism when we're looking at calorie intake. So that's like the best kind of comparison that I like to use because to me in my brain it makes sense. So hopefully it makes sense to you. So what that means is if you have all these internal systems slowing down your metabolism so your body's not burning as many calories at rest, this means that your energy output's going to go down in an attempt to like anticipate another low calorie day. So this isn't like working out less, right? Like this is your body's internal systems of how can I save calories, not waste my energy on things that aren't necessary because I need to prepare for that other low calorie day. And then this looks in the place of a lot of hormonal issues because hormones are not essential. We function way better when we're producing them properly, but when we're not, like we can survive without them, but it doesn't feel very good and your life expectancy won't be as great and your quality of life won't be as great and you're at greater risk for developing things, right? So consistency is going to be really, really important because otherwise we're going to see weight loss resistance where our body just doesn't want to get rid of weight because our body is just not ready, right? It doesn't trust you to feed it enough every single day is basically what's happening. So when cortisol goes up because of that stress of inconsistency, we're going to see insulin resistance goes up, okay? We're going to see that we have, that's going to lead to more belly fat storage as well, a slower metabolism, so your body burns less calories at rest, and blood sugar issues are going to affect your energy levels as well, your mood, your hunger levels, even your cognition, so your ability to think clearly, right? And we know that during perimenopause and menopause, estrogen starts to decline. We're already becoming more insulin resistant just because of that drop in estrogen. So if you're doing that inconsistency in calories, you're actually making that worse. So we're seeing blood sugar control get worse from that inconsistency in calorie intake. Inconsistent calories are also going to cause your thyroid to slow down. And thyroid hormone and cortisol levels in your body really dictate the balance of sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. It's going to lead to an imbalance there and cause major fatigue and exhaustion, as well as additional hormonal imbalances and symptoms dependent on whatever really is imbalanced in your body based off of that. We also know that inconsistent calories and that increase in cortisol is going to slow down thyroid function. And we know that when our thyroid slows down, our body burns less calories at rest because our thyroid is like this little thermostat. When it's high, it's good at burning calories. When it's low, it sucks at burning calories. And we know that women are at an 80% chance more, or 80% more likely than men to develop hypothyroidism, especially once they start hitting that perimenopausal age. So you don't want to increase your risk even more and further slow down your metabolism, making weight loss even harder by having that inconsistent calorie intake. So this is why how you eat is more important than you think. So basically, we just end up teaching our body over time with this inconsistent calorie intake to conserve fat. This is why eating intuitively when our body is stressed is not the best idea. I'm going to do a whole podcast on intuitive eating and chat about why it's probably not the best for you actually. And it's because you're only eating when you're hungry, right? But when we're in a stress state, typically hunger is really low or hunger is really high. It's one or the other. You have people who really stress eat and you have people who just don't eat all day, right? Or they get busy and they don't eat because they're distracted. So they're not paying attention to their hunger cues because their body is more focused on doing the task that is at hand. So you can't focus on intuitive eating on that kind of stuff because your body is not sending you the right signals. So you have to understand the difference of, oh, I'm stressed out. I probably need to eat a little bit more carb today. I'll up my fiber and my calories a bit to meet the needs that my body actually has, as opposed to I'm just going to eat when I'm hungry, right? Fasting's going to throw off your hunger signals. You're supposed to be hungry in the morning when you wake up. If you don't, that's a sign you're running on your stress hormones. If your hunger hormones are off, which happens during perimenopause and menopause as well, that's going to affect your satiety, right? If your estrogen is low, you don't find food as satisfying. So it's more likely that you'll eat more. If your androgens are high, you typically are going to have more appetite. So there's all these hormonal changes that really change your appetite, your satiety, how full you feel. So you can't always trust your intuition to just eat when you're hungry because it's influenced by too many things. And if your hormones aren't balanced and you're eating inconsistent calories, your signals as to when you're hungry, when you're not, is going to be off. Same with your blood sugar, right? So this is why you need to work on consistency and you can't just trust how you feel because that would be like trusting a toddler's intuition at this point. If it was up to a toddler, you would just eat candy all day. You can't do that. I mean, you could, but it's not going to be great for you, right? So what if we told you that you will actually burn more fat when the body feels comfortable letting it go? This is where us supporting your metabolism and how well your body burns calories is so important. And we need to fuel that fire to keep that fire burning consistently because your metabolism is like a little bonfire. Okay. And you need to make sure you're adding enough. So that's how many calories your body burns at rest, right? Is that little fire. And you need to be adding enough fuel to that fire to keep your metabolism up. But if you're constantly taking out food and you're not eating enough, or some days you get a lot and sometimes you don't, your metabolism is just a disaster. We want consistency there because that makes it easier to lose weight. So if you recognize that you are inconsistent, the first step is probably track your food, which everybody hates, right? Everyone's like, Steph, I don't want to track. I have a bad relationship with food. Most people have a bad relationship with food and tracking because they get obsessed with seeing how little they can eat. They have this number they need to stay under, and they're like, how little can I eat to see changes? Whereas this way, it's, can I eat consistently? Am I getting enough of the food that I need? Am I getting enough protein? Am I getting enough fiber? Am I making sure I'm fueling my body enough? That's what you're looking at. And am I being consistent? Because then if you're not, that's a very, I don't want to say easy thing because it takes planning, right? It's going to take work and practice, but we can clearly identify where things are going wrong and now you can make a plan, right? That's super exciting. That's not saying you're doing a bad job. That's like, awesome. I know what the problem is. Now I can fix it. Great. That's a great thing to discover. So that's the first one. The first thing of how you eat, which is causing hormonal imbalances and making it tough for you to lose weight, is inconsistent intake day to day. The second one is going to be yo-yo dieting or chronic dieting or a history of trying weight loss multiple times. So just like inconsistent calorie intake day to day, crash diets over and over and over, the Weight Watchers, the Optavia, the keto, the whatever low calorie thing that you've done, whatever nutrition plans, right? It's going to do very similar things to your body over that extended period of time. Eating extremely low calorie for a number of weeks and then going back to normal is going to cause so many problems for you. Losing weight fast only to gain it back again, and that causes the body to stop trusting itself. We see this time and time again. Like people have done, whatever low calorie diets, they're down to 1,200 calories or whatever that is, which is wild. Anything under 1,600 calories is actually deemed low calorie medically. So, and it's not supposed to be done for extended periods of time. So that is something just to be aware of. There's very few people who that's like an appropriate maintenance level for. So that is something to be aware of. Just little light bulb there for you. But you need to be aware that when you do a low calorie intake, your body is very vulnerable afterwards. Your body is like it, because like a calorie deficit is a stress on your body. So your body is like already kind of in survival mode a bit for you there. And then if all of a sudden you go from eating 1,200 calories to going back to normal and eating like 1,800 or 2,000 or whatever that might look like, your body holds on to all of that because it's stressed and it's like, we've been like eating low calorie for a long time. Like we better hold on to this while we have it because we're probably going to be low again tomorrow. So this is why coming out of a diet appropriately is so important. And this is where a lot of people go wrong, because when you go to lose weight the first few times, typically it's easier, right? But then it gets harder and harder and harder, and you gain the weight back more and more and more. And this is what's happening is your body is learning like we need to hold on to stuff. And whenever we get to that low calorie state, our body kind of just freezes and starts storing everything. You don't see any changes or you see weight gain. And that's because of this stress response and what your body has learned over the years, decades even, right, from the dieting that you've been doing. So what we see is yo-yo dieting also decreases thyroid function, which I talked about, slows down your metabolism, which is not great. We're going to see that increase in cortisol, that stress hormone. We're going to see that increase in insulin resistance again. It really messes with our hormone production big time, like hugely. Progesterone in particular, you're going to see is definitely a problem. And all that's going to lead to fat storage or the inability to lose weight. So you're going to see some weight loss resistance there. Eventually, these crash diets, again, like I said, just stops working because your body has had enough. It's learned what to do when you go into those low calorie states. And so then it no longer works for fat loss, which of course leaves you feeling frustrated and at a loss. And I'll go over some things afterwards. But really, it's just like you're constantly driving your car at 50 miles an hour, right? Or you're only going, not 50 miles an hour. You want to drive your car 50 miles, but you're only giving enough gas for 40. You start with a full tank, but eventually at that 10-mile disparity over time, that's going to create a gas tank that's more and more empty and will eventually run out, right? Like your body just cannot sustain that anymore. So not only does yo-yo dieting cause a high affinity, so more likely for you to have fat storage in the future, and a slower metabolism, so your body is worse at burning calories, it can contribute to a much lower stress hold over time and hormonal imbalances. So what I mean by that is like, let's say when everything's fine and peachy before any of this stuff happened, before hormonal changes and diets and all that kind of stuff, you could handle a 10 out of 10 for the stress. And then once you get to that 10 out of 10, that's when we saw our cortisol come up. That's where we saw insulin resistance come up, our thyroid function take a hit, progesterone and estrogen start to decline, losing muscle mass, all those kinds of negative consequences that we've talked about in the past. But then every time you've done a diet, that drops down your stress tolerance a little bit. So now you can handle 9.5 out of 10, then a 9 out of 10, and then an 8.5. And then you hit perimenopause, and when estrogen drops, our threshold drops even more. So it doesn't take nearly as much stress for you to see those negative side effects that we've been talking about. So you're pushing harder to try and lose weight, right? But that's just adding more stress to your body, making that worse. So we have to meet your body where it's at, and really make sure that we're not going on this yo-yo dieting on and off trend all the time, because it's going to cause metabolic damage, hormone damage, and leave you in a pretty crappy position where your body just isn't responsive again. And a lot of people that we talk to are in this state, and it sucks, and it's tough, and it's a struggle, and it's a longer process, but you have to fix these underlying things, because if you don't, like you're not going to see any changes, because your body just won't respond anymore. So like I said, it's going to contribute to some hormonal imbalances like the insulin resistance. We're going to see a low thyroid function. We're going to see progesterone and estrogen have some issues as well, which can lead to low energy and achy joints and lots of anxiety and depression. So it's not that you're crazy. Your body is going through changes and responding to the stress that you're putting it under. It's giving you signs that something is wrong and we need to address it. And I'm telling you right now, just cutting your calories isn't going to be the answer for you. The more that you yo-yo diet, the more that you've tried to lose weight every time, and jumped on and off, the more protective the body is going to become when it's with its organ function, the less willing it's going to be to let go of fat mass. Excess cortisol is going to contribute to some muscle wasting as well. So we're going to see a loss of muscle mass and a higher body fat percentage, which you don't want, because the less muscle we have, the slower our metabolism is, which means we burn less calories at rest. And as we age, we're also prone to losing muscle mass, right? That's not good. So the more that we crash diet, the more our metabolism is going to slow down to conserve energy to keep us surviving. And over time, you need less and less calories and more exercise to get even close to the same response that you did the first time that you did it. And this is because your hormones are already imbalanced from that previous crash diet and the one before that and the one before that and the low calorie state you've been in for 6 months, 8 months. You can't, deficits for 6 months don't work. That's not, your body down regulates and meets you where it's at based on what you're feeding it. And that becomes your new maintenance. And we don't want that. That's why you have to have shorter fat loss phases and why you need to have an exit plan and a strategy to come out of that appropriately. Otherwise, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, and all those efforts aren't going to benefit you. So it doesn't feel good to feel like you're wasting your time. That's the worst. Nobody wants their time wasted. So to help with this, what you need to do is a reverse diet. And this is a podcast I did a while ago. I did one on reverse dieting do's and don'ts. We did a 3-part series to this kind of stuff. And it wasn't that long ago, so you can go back and find it. But this is where we start increasing your calories slowly and strategically to get you to where your maintenance calories and protein range should be, and then keep you there for an extended period of time so that we can improve your metabolism, so your body's better at burning calories, improve your hormone balance so that you're not experiencing negative hormonal symptoms again, and really get your body to a place where then when we drop your calories, you do see changes. Because it sucks to drop calories and not see changes, right? It sucks to put in that effort. So we have to undo those years of chronic dieting, yo-yo dieting, and consistent calorie intake to get your body to a place where it will respond again. If you are able to objectively look at those two things first and foremost and determine that you're not eating consistently and you've not been dieting for a long time, then we can talk about other things. But you need to ask yourself, am I consistent in my calorie intake? Track for a week, 2 weeks. Are you consistent? No, that's step number 1. Step number 2, is my calorie intake and do I have a history of yo-yo dieting and crash dieting and multiple weight loss attempts? If the answer is yes, then you need a reverse diet. So that's how you fix those 2 things. Those 2 things are super important. Then we can talk about the other things that are going to be very important as well. But those 2 are the very big rocks that you need to address big time. Okay, I cannot stress that enough. Consistency in intake and eating enough food to heal your metabolism are going to be key. If you don't do that, you will not be successful. End of story, period. Okay, so then here are some other rules in terms of how to eat versus what to eat, okay, that are going to really impact your ability to lose weight. So the first mistake that we see so many women doing is not eating in the morning. So you're fasting, right? You're skipping the meals. And even if calories are consistent day to day, fasting does cause a increase in cortisol. There are studies that do show this, and it does that in the morning. And cortisol is already really high in the morning. So we don't want to increase that even more. We don't want to be running on stress hormones. Okay. With high cortisol, it's going to lead to a big issue with blood sugars and therefore insulin resistance for the rest of the day, which we know is already an issue once our estrogen levels are going down. So this is where you might be craving sweets at nighttime, right? Or you feel terrible in the afternoons and you have energy crashes. The skipping the breakfast is most likely your culprit. You need to be eating enough food. And women can't handle stress as well as men, thanks to testosterone levels. They're very lucky that way. So this is why men are more likely to be more successful if they do the fasting and they can handle bigger calorie deficits and be in fat loss phases longer because they have that protective element to them, whereas females do not. We are not the same as men. So that is something to be aware of. So people are like, fasting, how does that ruin my blood sugar? I thought that was supposed to improve it. It can help some people. For most people, no, because of the stress response that we're seeing, especially if you're already eating a low calorie diet. So what happens is when you're fasting, your body will actually break down muscle and your gut lining, take it to your liver. Your liver is going to convert that into sugar, put it into your bloodstream. So you have a blood sugar spike and an increase in your stress hormone cortisol, which is going to negatively affect your hormone balance when you're not eating and when you're not having carbohydrates. Okay, so it's going to cause more blood sugar dysregulation. It's also going to promote muscle loss because, like I said, it's breaking down muscle and taking it to your liver to turn that into sugar so your body can use it for energy. Anything longer than 12 hours in menopause for fasting will lead to the breakdown of muscle. So slowing the metabolism and lowering your energy levels, which we do not want because you know how hard it is when our energy is low to resist cravings. Our body is begging you for sugar and food. So skipping your breakfast in the morning is a big mistake that we see. We don't do fasting with any of our clients. There's numerous reasons. I did a podcast episode on January 1st on fasting that you can go listen to that lists like 10 different reasons why we don't do fasting here at Vitality. Can it work for some people? Sure, there's a very small population of women that would be appropriate for. But if you are an exerciser, if you are active, if you are stressed, if you are not sleeping enough, if you are eating low calorie, if you struggle with muscle loss and performance in the gym, if you struggle with your energy and your cravings, hormonal symptoms, fasting is not for you. Okay, and I probably just listed most people that are listening to this podcast because you are the ones that are listening to this, right? And you've tried it. And if it was going to work, it would have worked by now. That's it. Next one is skipping meals. So this has to do with like inconsistent calorie intake. Inconsistent meal timing can do that too. So just like fasting, skipping meals creates a stress on the body and higher cortisol levels. So high cortisol is going to result in high blood sugars. That's going to lead to insulin resistance over time, which leads to cravings and low energy, afternoon energy crashes, muscle loss, poor food choices for the rest of the day. So don't skip meals. In fact, plan to eat a protein-rich meal with carbohydrates every 4 to 5 hours throughout your day. That doesn't include your snacks. So you can have snacks in between. But there should be a carbohydrate and a protein at all your meals. Okay? Huge, huge. The next one is not fueling around your workouts. So workouts cause stress. Good stress, right? We're trying to stress our body to adapt, to get stronger. And the more that you can utilize food to really mitigate that stress response, it can help it come down better. Okay. Fueling around your workouts not only helps you have more energy and burn more calories during that workout itself, but it helps your body recover and bring your cortisol back down. This helps with muscle building, with fat loss, with blood sugar control, improving your metabolism. So eat a pre-workout snack of 15 to 20 grams of starchy carbs and protein, and always have a protein and carb after a workout to help with repair too. This is huge. Like this is something that's not a negotiable with the clients that we work with. Workouts, you're eating pre and post workout every single time. End of story. Even if you work out super early, you can have like half of a shake. You can have some fruit with a little bit of yogurt. It won't be as big of a meal because you don't want it to be heavy in your stomach, but you do need to have something in there because when estrogen goes down, we have a harder time accessing energy stores. So you won't even get as much out of your workout as you need. And that increased cortisol response that we experience is going to break down muscle mass even more, which we don't want. So fueling pre and post workout is huge. You need to do it. Okay. Big time. The next one is having no food after dinner. We all have this belief that if we eat after supper time or dinner time or whatever you call it, I call it supper because I'm Canadian. I get made fun of all the time, but that's what it is here. So everyone thinks that after supper, if you eat, you are automatically, somehow your body knows it's after 8 p.m. and it's going to turn into fat. That's not how our body works. And we actually encourage women to eat a bedtime snack. And this snack has a slow digesting carb that we pair with either a fat or a protein. And it has been shown to dramatically improve sleep. We do this with every woman that we work with. And when we get enough good quality sleep, we can blunt our stress response. We can have better blood sugar control and muscle growth and more energy and lose weight, especially around the abdomen, a lot easier. So that bedtime snack of a slow digesting carb paired with a protein or fat source, have that 60 to 90 minutes before you go to bed. It can really help regulate your blood sugars and promote melatonin production because the carbohydrate comes up, like when you eat a carbohydrate, your cortisol is going to come down, and it allows for your melatonin, your sleepy hormone, to come up. So it makes it so you can fall asleep more easily. Making sure it's a slow digesting carb with fat or protein means that your blood sugars aren't going to spike. They're going to stay pretty stable throughout the nighttime, because we don't want to have a sugary snack before bed or chips or things like that, because we get a blood sugar spike and then a drop and then we wake up at nighttime. This is very common with women going through perimenopause and menopause because we already have a harder time regulating our blood sugars when estrogen goes down. So some great examples are going to be popcorn and a turkey pepperoni stick, oatmeal with protein powder or nut butter, yogurt with some protein powder, or you could do like some protein granola. Toast with peanut butter or toast with egg. You can do those protein balls that have like the oats and the nut butters and all that kind of stuff. Those are all great options. Amazing. Like, do that before bed. It doesn't have to be a big meal. It's not gonna, like, you don't want to have a huge meal before bed because that will affect your sleep just because of the digestion process. But something small like that will do wonders for you and you will feel great. My favorite personally is the popcorn option. I love it. So then we have types of food. So this is not having enough fiber, for example. Fiber helps their digestion with our energy output by slowing down the speed at which food digests. So that can help with our metabolism. It also helps promote the detoxification of metabolites, which help with inflammation, which is huge. We know when estrogen goes down, we have a harder time dealing with inflammation. So increasing fiber can be really helpful, but you want to increase fiber slowly. Otherwise, you will not poop for a while, and that will suck. We have several estrogen receptors that are in our gut as well. And when we have an inflamed gut, this is going to damage those receptors. And it's going to lead to improper hormone communication in our brain, with our brain, which can lead to either low estrogen or it can lead to estrogen dominance. And both of those are going to come hand in hand with hot flashes and night sweats and achy joints, inflammation, poor energy, poor blood sugar regulation. And that's not a good place to be in. So fiber can really help with that, with your estrogen symptoms. So you want to aim for a balance between soluble and insoluble fiber. Those come from whole foods. That's what we want, right? If you are eating lots of quote unquote health foods that are like keto, high protein, watch the fiber content, because some of those things have like 17 grams in a wrap of fiber when you want your fiber intake to be about 20 to 30 grams a day. Very easy to go over and upset your stomach. And we want most of our fiber sources to come from whole foods. Health foods like keto wraps are not whole foods. Okay, so you just have to be mindful of those. They have a place in your diet, but like if you're having that every day, that can be causing a lot of issues for you. What that threshold number is for fiber is really going to depend on the person. For me, I'm better around like 15 to 25. If I go above that, I really struggle with digestion. But some people can go up to like 35. So you have to increase slowly and really see what that threshold is for you. If you have like ulcerative colitis, for example, fiber will typically be a bit lower. The next one is not enough whole food nutrients. So eating ultra processed foods is fine in moderation. I love me a donut, but the more whole foods you have, that's where you're going to get most of your nutrients from. Nutrient deficiencies are a very commonplace in the standard North American diet, which is also known as the SAD diet. And it takes, it's missing processes from, it's affecting your body from being able to make processes happen efficiently that need to happen in order to help support hormone production. So a good example here is B vitamins. If we're not having enough B vitamins in our diet, it's going to hamper the production of DHEA and progesterone, as well as prevent estrogen detox. So that can lead to estrogen dominance because of low progesterone and then not enough estrogen getting removed from our body. And that can even contribute to adrenal burnout as well, actually. So you always want to make sure that you prioritize 70 to 80% of your day coming from whole foods, and then 20 to 30% coming from ultra fun processed type foods. Okay. And some of those quote unquote health foods fit in there. Cause for example, a protein bar, let's face it, is like a glorified chocolate bar, right? So you're not getting a ton of nutrients from that. That would be a lot different than having some fruit with some nut butter and whatever other kind of protein you want to add to that, right? So that's something to be aware of. The next one is not having enough protein. Protein is so essential when we go through the aging process. Okay, it's so important for retaining and building muscle mass, which we know starts to decline once we hit age 30, which is not great. And then when estrogen goes down, or if you're struggling with low testosterone, this gets worse. If we're in a stressed state, if we're not having enough carbohydrates, if we're not having enough food, and then not enough protein, you can expect that muscle mass to pretty much disappear quite quickly. And then it takes a lot longer to try and put on. So it's important to get on top of it now. The sooner the better. If you know people who are in their 20s and 30s, advocate for them to start eating more protein and to start working out. Because once you hit 30 and over, it's still possible, but it takes more time and a lot more effort. So we know extreme diets and lots of weight loss attempts are going to cause muscle loss. Less muscle is also going to be associated with less bone density, which we know is an issue when estrogen goes down as well. We're going to have less strength, less energy. Our risk of falls is higher, which lead to more osteoporotic breaks because our bone density goes down as well. So you want to aim to build your way up slowly to 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. So 0.8 to 1 times your body weight in pounds for where you want to be protein-wise in a day. Typically, I like to cut people off around 140, 150, just because protein is hard to digest. And I find when people go above that, they start having to use a lot of processed things to try and get them to their protein goals, which can have negative effects too if you're really relying on a lot of powders and bars and protein Pop-Tarts and whatever that might be, right? So we need to just be aware of that. And also we know that digesting protein burns a lot of calories, which is awesome. So we know that the more protein you burn, you're going to burn more of those calories in the digestion process compared to fats or carbs, for example. The next rule is no naked carbs. So this doesn't mean I'm telling you not to eat naked on the couch with a bowl of popcorn. You do you. Whatever you do at home is up to you, right? It doesn't matter to me. But what I mean is we don't want to have carbohydrates on its own. We know that in perimenopause and menopause and onwards, when estrogen goes down, we have a decrease in our stress threshold and a decrease in our ability to control our blood sugars, which can lead to insulin resistance. So carbs are going to be absolutely necessary for so many things in our body, like decreasing our stress response and maintaining muscle mass and providing ourselves with energy, and support hormone balance as well. So we need carbs in order to produce our sleepy hormone melatonin, for example. But we need to eat them appropriately, and this is where people go wrong. So you need to always pair your carbs with protein and or fats. So if you're having an apple, for example, have it with some yogurt or some nut butters. Or maybe you're having some cheese and then having your apple, whatever that looks like. You always want to pair your carbohydrates with something. So pasta, let's make sure that you're having a side salad beforehand, or you're having some chicken in that pasta. If you're having bread, make sure you're adding not just one slice of meat on there. You're topping that up with a lot, right? So you're always having your carbs with a protein or a fat. That's going to help with how quickly your body digests out of your stomach. So the slower your food empties, the better that your blood sugar is going to be. You're not going to see a spike and drop. The quicker something exits your stomach, the higher the blood sugar spike and drop. Okay. The next one is too much saturated fats. So saturated fat has been shown to contribute to high cholesterol and triglycerides, especially as we go through menopause. And not only that, but saturated fat can hinder the natural production of our steroid hormones like testosterone and progesterone, which can lead to lower levels in these hormones that we need in perimenopause to feel good and for our metabolism to function properly so our body can burn calories at rest in an efficient way, making weight loss easier. So you want to aim to keep saturated fat under 25 grams a day. Be mindful of red meats and full fat dairy products as they can have higher levels of saturated fats. So that's just something to watch for, okay? Again, tracking can help bring to light where some of the culprits of this stuff would be. Because like if you were to ask me where's my most likely saturated fat coming from, I'd have to look at my app and be like, I think like I have an idea, but like to be honest, it all comes with like dosage, right? Like how much you're having of something, how often you're having it, things like that. So tracking can give you a lot of information as to what foods am I having that are higher in saturated fats, right? Low carb diets. I just did a whole podcast on this. You can go back and listen to it. They are essential for living with vitality. They promote proper blood sugar balance. They are an anabolic nutrient, meaning that it helps us maintain and build muscle mass. They help us provide us with energy. They are essential for managing our cortisol levels, especially once estrogen goes down and we don't have that stress buffer anymore. They help our body detox unwanted metabolites and prevent hormone imbalances through detox pathways. Yes, carbs do this. They're amazing. Low carb prevents proper production of melatonin, our sleepy hormone. So like if you're not getting enough carbohydrates, your sleep is going to suffer and you're going to wake up at 3 a.m. and it's going to suck. And low carb diets have been shown to decrease your thyroid function, which means we need carbs for our thyroid to function properly and for our metabolism to be good. When thyroid function is low and we're having low carb, our body sucks at burning calories, making weight loss much harder. Plus, you're going to feel exhausted all the time. So how can we start to improve our eating or our food choices to really help support our hormone balance better? And how to promote more efficient fat loss? How do we turn your body from this like hybrid car into a diesel truck? How do you make you good at burning fuel? That's obviously going to make fat loss a lot easier. I think we can all agree on that. The first thing that I always challenge people to do, even when they come on consultation calls, track your food for 2 to 3 days. Okay. Get some data so you can actually look back, because we might think that we're doing something, but even the most educated people, myself included, will tell you their self-guessing isn't as accurate as you think. What you measure gets managed. Okay. That's not, you have to track something. Okay. It's always the best place to start, because if you don't know what you don't know, like you can think you're doing a good job, but are you? That's like schools not giving out grades and marks. You could think you're doing a good job, but at the end of the year, it's like, bam, you actually finished with a 52. And it's like, what? I thought I was crushing it. But if you're not having any feedback or data to look back on, you don't know how to adjust things. You don't know what to change, right? So if you can track your intake using a food app, this is always the ideal if you can, or a food journal where you write down all your food choices. With a food journal, it's really important to write down the amounts of everything, not just like potatoes and chicken. Because potatoes and chicken, that could be a 300 calorie meal with like 10 grams of protein. That could be a 600 calorie meal. That could have 40 grams of protein. That could have 10, like, I have no idea. So when people share stuff like that, like, oh, I usually have this, and I'm like, awesome. Food quality looks good. Like we're looking at 80%, but that's literally all I know. Like I have no idea. Are you over? Are you under? Are we having enough protein? I have no idea. Because just because there's protein in every meal doesn't mean that you're necessarily getting enough protein, right? So measuring is really, really important. Once we have those numbers down in front of us, we can really look at where do we have to improve things? Is it our calorie intake that's all over the place? Is it that you've had a low calorie diet for too long or you're under eating? Is it that you're skipping meals, or you're low protein, or you're not having enough carbs, or your fiber's too low, or we're not having enough whole foods? Like, we can really sit down and see, where is the issue? And that's not us being like, oh, you're doing a terrible job. It's like, no, I know what the problem is. This is awesome. This is exciting. I can tell you what the issue is. And now we can make a plan to fix it. That's amazing. Like, that's the best case. The worst case is going in and someone shares something with you and you're like, I don't know what's wrong. That sucks. Or when someone just says, eat less, move more. That's garbage, because we just talked about a bunch of different things that can really influence your hormones and your ability to lose weight. That has nothing to do with calories in, calories out, with eat less, move more, right? So it's important to be able to look back at stuff. So step one is, let's measure, collect your data, and then we can manage. Don't start making changes right away. Like, try and see where you're at first, and then we can start focusing on things to change. And we want to change things slowly. And if we're changing everything at once, that can be chaos. Because if you're increasing your fiber, and let's say your meds change, and you're increasing your protein, and you're now having breakfast that you changed like 4 things at once. We have no idea if the adverse effect that you're having or the positive effect you're having is from one thing more than the other, or like what's causing what. So we want to make small changes, be consistent with it, and see how our body responds. Does this take longer? Yes. But then we know what works and how your body responds and what it responds best to, which is amazing, because in the long run, that makes it more effective, more efficient, and then you have a plan that works for you, which is huge, because now you know how your body functions, because no one has ever taught you. And if you don't know, how are you supposed to manage things, right? Exactly. So I want to stress again, the most important thing is to make sure you are eating enough consistently. Those were the first 2 points that we talked about. This is going to help you not only with your energy, your organ function, your communication signals and recovery from stress, your hormone balance, your stress threshold, your gut health as well. So it's important to note that these changes are absolutely 100% going to take time. A lot more time than you probably think. If you're thinking a month, probably add 2, right? Like, this is going to take time. For some people, it's a lot longer than that. Especially if you've done yo-yo dieting and crash dieting over and over and over, or you've been struggling with this for a very long time and you feel like you've been doing everything right and not seeing changes, you're going to need more time repairing your body and repairing these things internally before you can go into a fat loss phase, before you can cut your calories and see changes. Because again, like, you need to make sure you are eating enough food and your body's in the space that then when we drop your calories, you do see changes. Because it's the worst feeling in the world to cut calories and not see changes. That sucks. So for most of us, the focus should really be on improving your metabolism, making your body better at burning calories through building muscle, especially at the beginning, not focusing on fat loss, focusing on building muscle to really help improve your metabolism, your blood sugars, your hormone balance. We should be focusing on reverse dieting, so slowly increasing that calorie intake, getting enough protein and carbs in, making sure we're getting fiber in our whole foods, focusing on that inner health, which is so, so important, and for your metabolism overall in the long run. Okay? As always, if you have any questions as to like, Steph, I have no idea what the issue is, where to start, I'm overwhelmed, just message me, book a consultation call. It's in the show notes. We will help you. Like, we'll assess all this stuff with you. If you can, please, 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 please track your food for like 2 or 3 days. That will help us help you better. And then we don't have to go back and forth via email, because like that takes longer, right? Because I only check my email every other day because things get pretty hectic. Same with social media. So booking a consultation call, if you can track for like 3 days, that is always like the ideal, just so we have something to look at together and we can identify where things are going wrong. We are going to ask you so many questions. This is why going via DMs and email can take a little bit longer, because anyone who's talked to me knows that I will ask you a ton of questions. If you've had a consultation call with any of us, we will ask you so many questions. So it's a lot easier to do it via a Zoom call. Again, we'll never talk about coaching there, but I do want to just like summarize what I talked about here, that how you eat is super important. So number one is consistency and addressing yo-yo dieting by eating enough, making sure you're not fasting in the mornings. We're not skipping meals, so we're being consistent. We're having pre and post workout fueling, so you're eating pre and post workout. We are having that bedtime snack. We are paying attention that we're getting enough fiber, that we're getting enough whole foods, enough protein. We're pairing our carbs with something always at every single meal. We're paying attention to saturated fats. We are not doing low carb anymore. Okay, so those are big ones. Focus on one. Consistency is going to be huge, but I mean, if you're not a breakfast eater, maybe that's where we start. And you start with something small. It doesn't have to be this big buffet of waffles and stuff like that. Like, just start with some yogurt and some fruit. Make sure it's a higher protein yogurt. That's where you start. Nothing crazy. Super simple. Like, we tend to get overwhelmed and think about all the things. Like, just pick one. Okay. So again, I hope this was helpful. If you need help figuring out where to go, what to do, how to start, book a consultation call. We are always more than happy to discuss that with you. The first one with us is always free. We give you a roadmap in terms of like where your calories should be, what are the things we would focus on, little tweaks that we would make, how long to probably stay there for. So we make sure that you leave with a plan. And if you follow that plan, you're going to be successful. But again, if you're increasing calories, increase slowly. So that being said, share with your friends. Love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.